let's talk about the x-intercepts of a rational function. You know how to find the x-intercepts. We need to let y, or the f of x, equal 0. Now, a rational function equals 0 if the numerator equals 0. This is important. The other thing that's important is that the function must be in simplest form. That means you need to factor first. So if we look at a, the r of x, we see we can factor that numerator and denominator. And when I do so, x plus 3 is common. And we're left with x minus 3 over x minus 1. Now we can find the x-intercept. So again, to find the x-intercept, we let the numerator equal 0. The numerator so we see that when x equals 3, y will equal 0. We have an x-intercept at x equals 3. What about part B? We can't simplify it. Those of you who wanted to cross these off, no, of course not. I'm going to come take your pencils away. No, those are terms. They are not factors. Remember that factors multiply each other, and that's why we could simplify in part A. So there's no simplifying that can happen here. But in order to find the x-intercepts, we have to let the numerator equal 0. Well, we just did this in the last video lesson. This is never going to equal 0. This is a sum of squares. X squared would have to equal -1 in order for this to equal 0. And x squared will never equal -1 if we're talking about x as a real number. This tells me there are no x-intercepts. Here are two questions. Why don't you find the x-intercepts for C? Remember, when you're finding the x-intercepts, we need to let the numerator equal 0, but we have to simplify our expression first. So now my numerator is simply 1, and 1 does not equal 0, and so we know there are no x-intercepts. What about in D? I factored the numerator and denominator, but there were no common factors. So in order to find the x-intercepts, we let the numerator equal 0, and we found that there are two x-intercepts, one at x equals -7 and x equals 3. So we've talked about using the denominator, which cannot equal 0, to help us find the domain. Now we've talked about using the numerator equal to 0 to find the x-intercepts. Make sure you're comfortable knowing which strategy to use depending on what is being asked for.